our economy. We have many people dependent on cheap food. Since the 1970s in the United States, real income, adjusted for inflation, has fallen consistently to today. The only reason people put up with it, to the extent that they put up with it, is because the food was getting cheaper too. So that's what I mean when I say it's now baked in. You will not fix this problem simply within the food system by making good food cheaper. You're going to have to pay an honest price for food and make sure you pay people enough money by raising the minimum wage and things like that they can afford to buy it.
So you need to fix a much bigger problem
before
this becomes
everything.
A realistic
to
solution.
fix food, you need to fix everything.
You're listening to Analysis on BBC Radio 4 in conversation with the food writer Michael Pollan. Now, Michael Pollan, you say that another word for food culture and how it's transmitted is mum, and that mothers have lost their confidence or their authority in recent time to experts. Experts now tell us what we should be eating, and many of those experts work in the field of nutritional science. You're not a fan. Why not?
I spent a lot of time for a book called In Defense of Food studying nutrition science, trying to answer this simple question that led to the 7-word mantra, which is, what do we know about the links between diet and health? What can we say with any kind of confidence? People are really confused. So how do you do nutrition science? Well, it's really hard. You can't do a double-blind study of broccoli. It's not like studying a pill or a medicine. So how do you know what people are eating? Oh, they ask them. And do they tell the truth? No, actually, it's very well known that people lie like crazy when you ask them what they eat. So that the data on which these huge conclusions are based are off by, and this is the official figure of the nutrition science community, the data is off by between 20 and 30%. Okay? So these large recommendations are on this shifting sand of crappy information about what people are really eating. So nutrition science someday may answer these questions for us. But right now, nutrition science is a very young science. I'm being charitable. It's sort of where surgery was in the year 1650. Very promising,
but it's had some
not yet ready to take care of you.
But it's had some notable successes. I mean, identifying vitamin C, for example.
Deficiency diseases.
Now we can treat scurvy and beriberi.
And you know, the prestige of nutrition science comes from this wonderful era of the vitamin, the brilliantly named chemical called vitamins, and that we figured out scurvy and rickets, and that there were these horrible diseases, by the way, mostly the result of food processing. We got rickets when we started taking all the nutrients out of flour, when we made white flour. But even so we had this nutritional deficiency, and it was identified and linked to this chemical, and then the chemical was added to things like bread. And this is a great victory, and it did solve a big public health problem. And it gave, I think, an exaggerated prestige to this still uncertain young science.
But this is what it does, isn't it? It breaks down food into its component parts and says, okay, so here's broccoli. It is X, Y, and Z put together.
Right, and we can give it to you in another way. So beta-carotene is a great example. It was observed, for example, that if you eat a pound of vegetables a day, the cancer rate falls by about 50%. That's kind of amazing. People figured, well, it must be these antioxidants in vegetables. Beta-carotene, we think that's the one. So we started giving people beta-carotene in a pill, thinking they'd get the same effect. But weirdly enough, they got more cancer. No one knows why. Well, there are 49 other carotenes in a carrot, and it's in this very complex synergistic relationship with fiber and other things. And food is really complex. I mean, wonderfully so. And so is human digestion. I'll give you another example. I mean, we've only recently learned that when you're feeding yourself, you've got your cells to worry about, but 90% of your cells belong to bacteria that you also need to feed. And we're now learning that providing the proper food for the bacteria that live in your large intestine is vitally important to your health and your weight. We've just figured that out in the last few years. Imagine what else we're going to figure out.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? You said yourself, nutritional science is a young science. I mean, it could yet have all the answers.
Yes, and I look forward. We just have to understand it's very provisional. And in the meantime, though, we just have to eat food. You don't have to know what an antioxidant is to be healthy. I mean, you don't need any biochemistry to be healthy. You eat real foods that our species has been eating for a long time, and you're going to be fine.
And stay off the faddish diets.
And stay off the novelties and stay off the edible food-like substances. So it's not like we're in this state of suspension till the nutritionists figure it out.
You say that nutritional science has formed this kind of unholy alliance with the food industry. In what way?
Well, a lot of the nutrition science you read are studies commissioned by food manufacturers to help them back up health claims. And a lot of nutrition science is used, even the legitimate stuff is essentially used as a way to sell more processed food. Because look in the produce section or even the meat or fish aisle, you don't find any health claims there. That's really quiet food. You know, the broccoli is not bragging about itself the way the bread is or the yogurt is. Yet it is the truly healthy stuff.
So the point is, if you break a food down into its nutrients and say this nutrient is good, then if you put more of that nutrient in a processed food, you can say this is really good for you.
Yeah, and it isn't necessarily true, of course.
But the thing is, I mean, however bad this food is for you, we are living longer than we ever have before.
Yeah.
So it can't be that bad.
Oh, well, so why? Why is that? Well, we've added about 17 years to our life expectancy over the last 75 or 100 years. Most of it's come at the beginning of life, getting through early childhood, infant mortality, and that's about 10 years of it. And 7 years comes with interventions. So, yeah, we can keep people alive even after we give you heart disease. It's a great thing. But how much better to prevent it? The food industry creates patients, and the medical industry takes care of them. But it's not very good for us. We are at a fork in the road. I mean, we can go down that. Let's medicalize the Western diet. Let's figure out the pills, the stomach bypasses. Or we could do something, take another turn, which would be so much more beautiful and so much more economical and so much happier. And that would be to change the way we eat.
This question of how we should eat and what our diet should be, is that a question for us as individuals? Or, in your view, is that a question for policymakers too?
It's both. I really think it is both. I think we need to realize that it's not as if the food industry or the food marketplace is a free marketplace. Now I think we're starting to realize that our agricultural policies, which are designed to make food cheap and have succeeded at that, and to keep a certain class of farmers very profitable, we now need to align our agricultural policies with our health policies, because right now they're at loggerheads. I mean, in the United States, we spend a fortune of public money fighting type 2 diabetes, and we spend a fortune in public money subsidizing high fructose corn syrup with our corn subsidies. That's crazy. We're fighting both sides in the war on type 2 diabetes. So in the end, it's going to take political will and a big political fight to change this.
And is it
but the good
choice?
Thing about food is that individuals, at least middle class and up individuals, can make choices now and not wait for those policy changes.
And are those political choices for the individual?
Yeah. Oh, I think eating is a political act. It's an agricultural act. It shapes our agriculture, and it's a political act. And it's a therapeutic act. It's really complicated. It's complicated in a good way. You have power. I mean, the phrase vote with your fork, which I've used often in my work, you know, we don't get a lot of votes on these big issues. And food is you get 3 votes a day, and you can use those to shape the kind of food system we have. And I think it's one of the reasons this issue has been so appealing, especially to young people who, you know, can often feel really powerless, that this issue is empowering because you don't necessarily have to wait for the politicians to get it.
Any questions from the audience?
My name is Rob Lyons. I wanted to challenge you a little bit on the industrialisation stuff. I mean, I'm a journalist as well, and I write about these. From the point of view of somebody who grew up in a unfashionable provincial city, working class background, I can see that actually that industrialisation had enormous benefits in terms of the range and cost and convenience of food. So is there anything praiseworthy about industrialisation, you would say?
Let me sing its praises right now. One of the great achievements has been making food cheaper than it was. Meat, for example, which used to be a pretty elite food, has been democratized. And that chicken was something, that was the expensive meat for many years. And you only had that Sunday, maybe, if you had enough money. And now chicken you can have all the time. You can even have beef all the time. And that is an achievement. But I think like all achievements, we have to look at the cost. And in the case of making meat cheap, there's been a huge environmental cost. So we have to be frank about the positives and negatives. I use lots of industrial products. I don't mill my own flour. And I think frozen vegetables are a great blessing also. So it's not all bad, without question.
Time for one more question. I think there's a woman at the back there. Can you just say who you are before you answer?
Johan Bormer. Hi, do you have any thoughts you could share with us on the positive correlation between unequal societies and unhealthy eating and obesity?
Well, one of the things we've noticed, which represents a complete reversal of most of history, is today the poor are struggling the most with obesity and type 2 diabetes. And historically, normally, it was the rich who could afford to get fat and gouty and all that kind of stuff. And now it's the opposite. Why is that? Well, there's a couple reasons, but one is that we have created a system in which the cheapest calories are the least healthy calories. So because of the kind of subsidy system I described earlier, where we subsidize these commodity crops like soy, corn or maize, and wheat, these are the ones that are turned into sweeteners and starchy foods and processed foods. And so there have been studies done. There was a great economist at Washington State who sent his graduate students into the supermarket with $1. Buy as many calories as you can with that $1. And he wanted to see what they'd come back with. And then buy as many calories of a drink with that $1. Because this is what the poor are doing. They're on some kind of assistance plan, and they are trying to get through the month without their kids getting hungry. So they're trying to maximize the calories. And you won't be surprised to see that they found that they could get 850 calories of chips with $1 or 250 calories of carrots with the same $1. In soda, they could get something like 1,000 calories with $1 and only, a couple hundred calories of milk or juice. So we've created a system in which it's rational to eat badly if you're on a fixed budget. That's what we need to change from a policy point of view. Since 1980, the price of soda has gone down 7% and the price of fresh produce has gone up 40%. And with changes in our subsidy system, we can reverse that. And that's really where we need to go.
Are you off for dinner now?
Yeah, I am, yeah.
You must be in
I'm going out,
cook
too. I'm not cooking tonight.
Do you still get invitations to dinner?
It's a real problem. There are many people who don't invite us to dinner anymore, and it's not because I'm a rude dinner guest asking, where did you get that pork? But I think people think I will, and that I'll be hypercritical, and or that there's so many things I won't eat. So, yeah, we used to get invited out a lot more often. It's one of the sacrifices I've made for this work.
Well, thank you very much for giving us so much to chew on this evening.
Thank you, Jo.
Thank you very much to the audience for coming here to the London School of Economics and Political Science and taking part in this edition of Analysis. And my special thanks to Professor Michael Pollan.
Thank you. Thanks for your great questions.
That was Jo Fidgen talking to Michael Pollan at the London School of Economics and Political Science. The producer was Sally Abrahams. Next week, we've got a programme which I hope will make you think again about what caused the financial meltdown 6 years ago and how to stop it happening again. It comes from the authors of a provocative new book who will be grilled by